Did you know that anger is one of the hardest emotions for women to feel? Yet, it's also one of the most important emotions to process if we actually want to feel free from sugar and make peace with ourselves and food. Bottling up intense emotions like anger can lead to mental, physical, and energetic diseases, and of course, rob us of the life that we want to live. So the question now becomes, how do we learn to honor our anger and process our anger in a way that doesn't do more harm to ourselves or others? That is what we're diving into today's episode. Welcome to the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Dame, holistic nutrition coach and speaker. Let's dive in. Welcome to another incredible episode here on the show. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Danielle Dame, sugar freedom expert and somatic embodiment coach. And today we are diving into the topic of anger. And this really aligns with the training and education that I'm currently navigating in the world of somatics and understanding a deeper level of our emotional body and how this actually lies at the root of our addictive patterns with sugar. So today we're narrowing in and focusing here on anger. This has really been inspired by a few workshops and somatic journeys that I've actually guided recently, both in my monthly membership community as well as at my most recent retreat that I hosted in person this summer. We've done some anger work. And this has come from my own learning and my own experiences with my therapists, with my teachers, trainings that I've done in understanding how vital, especially as women, it is to learn how to not only feel our anger, but to process it in healthy ways. And we're going to talk about that in today's episode. So stay tuned. If this is something that you struggle with, maybe you resonate with being a hothead. Maybe you resonate with being easily angered or triggered. Or if you're like a lot of women that I work with, maybe you just don't feel anger at all. And you feel very blocked around this emotion, not even maybe even knowing when you're angry. So we're going to talk about all of this today. But before we get into that, as you know, at the start of these episodes, I love to give a little teaser about life and what's going on for me. There's been a lot going on in my life these days, especially as I'm transitioning from very busy getting our investment property ready to sell. We're still in the process with that, but we've been able to slow down a little bit, which has been so needed for my nervous system, and definitely finding some sort of rhythm here, especially as we shift into fall. One of the things that I'm really excited about, I think I've mentioned this on last week's episode, and definitely if you're on my newsletter list, I've been sharing about this. I am so excited because especially as we're talking about anger and these somatic workshops and these journeys and these somatic experiences that I am beginning to build more into my work with my clients, I am currently recreating and revamping my signature 10-week Break Free from Sugar program. This is a group experience. I've actually usually host this program in the fall, but this year I have taken a bit of a break because I'm working on some other massive projects behind the scenes. So the next cohort is going to be in the new year in early 2024. And what I have done for the first time ever is opened up extra early bird registration, which is something I've never done this far in advance before. And I'm opening this up for all of you, for anyone who's following me, who's interested to know more about the upcoming program and to make these plans for yourself to do this deep root cause inner healing work that I'm here preaching and sharing with all of you here if you want to create that lasting and peaceful relationship with sugar. So how that works, just really quickly here, and then we're diving into this episode and this will all make sense. How it works is come on over to the link below in the show notes and get your name on the wait list. As soon as you enter your name and email on the wait list, you will get an email from me that has a link to book a consultation call. So we can talk about the program there, get to know if it's a good fit for you and if you're a good fit for the program. And we can talk about whether or not you want to jump in and get your extra early bird bonuses and $500 discount on that program by December 31st. So come connect with me, check in, don't hesitate to just get your name on the wait list if you want to be the first to know, because this is a highly demanded program that I do keep relatively small so that we can get the value together out of everything that we're doing together. And it will absolutely fill up. come January when I open registration to the public. So don't wait. Come check that out, get your name on the wait list, and we'll go from there. And what this has to do with today's topic is that I am actually going to be hosting, as a part of next year's Break Free from Sugar program, the next cohort, I'm going to be hosting a sacred anger workshop. I'm going to be guiding everyone who is in that program through some very powerful exercises, some very powerful releasing and healing processes that allow us to get out of our head and into the body, which is where emotions live, which is where we need to process them from. So this anger workshop is actually going to be a bonus workshop in the upcoming program. I'm also going to be hosting some processes on shame, on inner child healing. I mean, we're going to be getting in there into the depths of some of this really, really big stuff. And we have to do this work if we ever want to feel the lightness and freedom that comes from releasing these heavy, heavy emotions. So today we're talking just about anger, okay? And anger, I want you all to understand, is one of the basic human emotions. It is elemental, just like happiness, sadness, anxiety, joy. It is one of our amazing gifts as human beings, as sentient beings on this planet, to be able to feel. And that doesn't mean that we're just allowed to feel happiness and joy, right? It means that we feel all the feelings. And anger is one of those that is actually very important for our survival. Anger is tied very directly to our basic survival as human beings. And it is related to the fight, flight, or freeze response in our sympathetic nervous system, right? Anger is that emotion that arises when we need to fight, right? And that might not be physically fighting. It's not necessarily involving your fists, right? And throwing punches, which is what many of us have as a reference for anger. But it might actually be more motivating to communities, maybe to combat injustices, changing laws, or a mother protecting a child in a dangerous situation. So there are a lot of places that anger really helps mobilize us, right? It helps drive us into taking action when something's not right. So I want you to remember that anger, just like all emotions, is vital as your experience as a human being. And as I mentioned in the little intro, the sad truth is that most women have become completely blocked to feeling or expressing anger. Even sharing with someone that you're feeling angry is a no-no, is something that you keep to yourself. So this is actually one of the mindset shifts I want all of you to make in understanding that anger is not a bad thing. We're going to talk about this, but anger is in fact actually sacred. Anger is sacred. It is a sacred reaction of our power as women. And it is our protection. It is a protection emotion when we are being wronged, when our power has been taken away, when our voice is not being validated, when we are being put down or bullied or abused. It is our natural response to being wronged in these ways and to being powerless. And as women living in a patriarchal society, we have a lot of anger, ladies, and our mothers had a lot of anger and our grandmothers had a lot of anger, and none of it has been acceptable to be expressed. And that makes me angry. So learning how to reclaim your anger, I want you to start calling it your sacred anger, because it is this sacred emotion that comes out of fighting and standing up for yourself. When a woman is in her power, she knows when to use anger and how to use it in a way that's not harming other people, but in a way that's channeling and maybe making changes in her life. For example, if you're in an unhealthy relationship where you are not being treated with respect or someone is taking advantage of you, right? And you rightfully feel angry about that, perhaps that anger is a sign for you or a driver for you to fight in the way that you stand up for yourself and demand that person treats you better. And if they don't, you leave that relationship, right? It empowers you to take action to look after yourself. Right? This is such an important part of your empowerment journey, right? Is to learn how to honor your anger and use it as a tool of empowerment, of knowing in your body, knowing when someone is not treating you with respect, when your power is being taken away, when your voice is not being heard, when someone is, being mean to you, right? In all of these situations, we need to learn that it is valid and okay to stand up for ourselves. And that this is an incredibly natural and beautiful and sacred response to our power being taken away. Ladies, it's time to take it back, right? And a part of that is finding that inner anger, right? Finding it and harnessing it and using that to make changes in your life and distance yourself from people who are not healthy for you, right? Or jobs, or situations, or to stand up for things that you believe in. There have been a lot of things over the last few years that have absolutely infuriated me and really made me angry and caused me to take a stand for myself and caused me to make changes in my life or communicate to people in my life boundaries. Communicating boundaries comes from anger, right? Often we'll get angry when a boundary is overstepped, right? When our power is being taken away in that way. I want you to think of this, think of it in the animal kingdom, right? Think of a mama bear whose little cub is, about to be attacked by a mountain lion or taken by a human, right? That mama bear is going to get pissed. She is a rage machine, right? Because she is protecting her young, right? And we as adult women now have to protect the young ones in us, our inner children, ourselves, especially I would say as women. Right? Living in a patriarchal society where there's a lot of messages that we're going to talk about in a minute that are keeping us from being allowed to have anger and to feel anger and to express anger. And that makes me angry, right? It's one of these catch-22s, right? When we realize where we've been stifled, where our power's been taken away, right? Where we haven't been allowed to be angry. Now that makes me more angry, right? How dare you tell me what I'm allowed to feel and not to feel? Right? And that righteous anger, that sacred anger is beautiful. It's not a bad thing. But we tend to think it is for a few reasons, right? We tend to push it away or stuff it down for reasons. And we'll talk about that in just a minute because there's a few reasons why we have such a hard time as women feeling and expressing anger. But I want you to know before we get into that, why we need to feel and process anger. Above and beyond what I just mentioned, right? I know I've shared on the podcast many times before, especially as we talk about emotional eating, we talk about these emotions, we've talked about somatics and nervous system stuff, but we must understand, and I want to continue planting that seed here for you. Maybe you're new to the podcast, the first time you're hearing this, that heavy emotions like anger, shame, guilt, depression, right? These are emotions that are very low vibration. So they actually drag us down. They're actually very heavy in our body, right? We feel very, very icky and heavy when we have these emotions flowing through us. So this heavy energy is actually toxic to our physical body. It's actually toxic and gets stored as energetic emotional toxins in our cells, in our brain, in our gut, in our heart, all over our body. And research is now showing that when we don't live a life true to ourselves and we don't honor and express all human emotions, it actually leads to disease. It actually leads to disease. I know Gabor Mate has talked many times about the research that they've done, noticing that women who develop cancer, especially I think it was breast cancer, don't quote me on that, are all people pleasers, are all women who have just kept the peace, never spoken up for themselves, never stood up for themselves, never honored their righteous anger. So this is really fascinating how when we stifle that and hold that energy in, not only does it drag us down just on a daily basis, just feeling heavy, maybe feeling blah more days than you're feeling joy, right? But it also leads to physical disease and eating. Right? This inner storm of stored up anger from decades, from your childhood all the way till your adulthood. This is decades of stored anger in your body currently. I'm still working on processing all of my childhood anger, all my anger, even from my ancestors. There's a lot being stored I'm aware of in my body, and I know there is in yours as well. And this tornado inside of us of heaviness and anger is one of the reasons why we numb out and eat sugar. We eat because it is so uncomfortable. We don't know how to express anger, right? There's this very firm belief in our nervous system that it's not safe to feel anger or express anger. Therefore, we stuff it down. And our body's natural desire is to let it out. So we do everything we can to keep the lid on the bottle, right? And we do that by eating, right? Or drinking or binging on Netflix. Like all the numbing out techniques and addictive behaviors that exist is this inner turmoil that we don't know how to feel because it's not safe to feel. So there's a lot of nervous system repatterning that we need to do here. I've mentioned a little bit about this already, but I want to dive now into this question, right? Of why, if Danny, you're saying anger is so important, it's so natural, it is our divine right as human beings on this planet, as women on this planet, to feel anger, then why do most women have such a hard time feeling and or expressing anger? So there's a couple things here that I want you to be really aware of. And this, of course, is just a few of the things that I've seen in my work over the last 8 years with clients and in my own healing journey. There's definitely more issues going on here, but I just want to highlight 4 here for you. Number 1, we have a culture around anger that constantly tells us women are not allowed to feel anger. Women are not allowed to express or feel anger. No. Women are meant to be quiet. We're meant to be pleasant. We're meant to be agreeable. We're meant to be good girls. We're meant to be seen and not heard. Like, this message is everywhere, right from your childhood up until today, in this day and age. We get this message in movies. We get it in songs. Women are the weaker sex. We have to be quiet. We have to, really serve the men in our lives. And it's men who are angry. Women aren't angry. So this internalization of I'm not allowed to feel anger is massive for all of us. Number 2 is that we don't have any model or reference for what it looks like to process healthy anger. I've hosted this workshop a few times in my communities and my programs, and I always ask this question, like, what is your reference for anger processing? And for every client I've ever worked with, it's physical abuse, it's yelling, it's emotional abuse, or the cold shoulder treatment, which was horrible for a young child to have someone just the silent anger. You know what I'm talking about. It is terrifying, right? But these are our references, right? Maybe it's yelling, maybe it's saying mean things to someone else, outbursts, right? It may even be like throwing or breaking things, throwing plates against the wall. These are the references that we have not only in our own upbringing, in our own house, right? It's either the cold treatment or this big, huge anger of violence, right? And emotional violence. That's it. That's our reference for healthy anger. And it's no wonder then that we have no tools to process healthy anger. We do not have any reference, no models. So this is the third thing here that's at play. Why it's so hard for us to feel anger is we have no tools. We have never been taught how. I was never taught, and that actually makes me angry. There's a lot of things I was never taught that I'm like, why am I just learning this now? And I'm very angry about that. And that's great. I can honor that anger and let that be alive in my body to fire me up to learn about these things now, right? And to do this work for myself that I'm doing, the healing that I'm doing. So this fact that you just have no tools, I want you to really understand that, because it takes a lot of blame off. Like, it's not your fault that you don't know how to express anger. You don't want to hurt people. So if you think that anger being expressed is punching someone or breaking something or yelling and being mean and breaking friendships, then of course you're not going to want to feel anger. So without these tools, especially in our nervous system and our body, without a tool, we don't feel safe to feel the anger, right? Or to express it. And the last piece here that really ties into this, number 4, is our beliefs around anger. So all of this, the culture that we live in, the culture that our grandparents and our mom and grandma lived in, right? We have no models for this healthy processing. We have no tools. So we start to form these beliefs about anger, right? Things like and maybe even in your own personal experiences in the past, when anger has been so bottled up for so long, it just explodes, right? And we have explosive, maybe you're yelling at the clerk at the grocery store, right? You start to form these beliefs. So when I'm angry, it hurts those around me. Or when I express anger, I risk losing relationships, or nobody will love me. It's not safe to feel anger. I mean, there's so many beliefs, and I want you to start reflecting on those for yourself now. What are the stories that you tell yourself about feeling anger, but also about expressing anger? Because there's a difference between allowing that feeling to be in your body privately at home versus allowing it to be expressed. Maybe telling someone you're angry or just yelling out loud, right? Or even expressing to yourself, right? In your journal or out loud to yourself alone at home. I mean, just letting it out, right? There's that difference between feeling an emotion and processing an emotion. Those are two different pieces, different sides of the same coin. So these beliefs start to form. So we can see just based off of these four, right? Our culture around the anger, the fact that women are not allowed to feel angry. We have no models for how to process healthy anger. We have no tools. And these limiting beliefs here that we carry deep in our subconscious and in our nervous system about how we're allowed to express anger or what it means if we actually express anger, right? And does it hurt those around us? So one of the important things is we're going to shift gears here into, okay, now what do you do, right? How do you actually process and honor this anger? Right? How do you actually begin to do that? So before we get into that, it's really important that you understand that, again, this anger is sacred. And this anger, when you feel anger, does not need to involve another human. This is actually the healthiest ways of processing anger are on your own. Even if it's someone else who happened to make you angry, air quotes, if you're listening to this on audio only, I'm doing air quotes because nobody actually makes you feel a certain way. Somebody else's behaviors or comments may elicit an anger response in your nervous system, in your body, because of your own stories and trauma. That is all your stuff. So with any big emotional response, we actually have a responsibility to step away, to not cause more harm in a relationship with a loved one or a stranger, and to process in our own way. Now, that doesn't mean later down the way, there may need to be conversation about boundaries. There may need to be more conversation with that person to understand you better and maybe understanding your triggers better or, ways that they can speak kinder to you. There might definitely be things that need to be communicated, but more often than not, anger can absolutely be processed on your own. And this is how you do no harm. No harm to yourself and no harm to someone else is learning the healthy processing tools so that next time you're feeling fueled up, fired up, frustrated, treated poorly, you can step away. You can consciously take a deep breath, acknowledge like I am having an anger response in my body. I'm feeling very charged. I'm going to go and deal with this on my own and we can talk again later. So instead of exploding, and I know lots of people do this, I have people in my family who explode very easily, right? That there's no filter, there's no pause, there's no consideration to throwing anger on other people. And this is what we need to stop doing because it hurts relationships, it hurts other people, it just hurts humanity. And in the end, it actually hurts us. So now that you know that, right? That next time you're feeling anger, it's not about putting it on someone else or having someone else handle your anger or meet you in your anger, which can be a helpful tool in the right therapeutic context. Absolutely, there are spaces where we can meet each other in anger for the purpose of processing that anger together. But that's normally what most people are not doing. So how do you start to do that? And that's where I want to take this episode next and share with you some tools that I've personally learned. Again, this list is not extensive. There's more. I would love for you to add to this list for yourself. What works for you when you're feeling angry? Right? Obviously, the first step here to honor and to start processing anger without hurting others, right? This is again on your own or with a therapist or with someone who can really hold you in an anger space without fear. Right? Can hold your power because that is what anger is. It is our outlet of our power, an example, expression of our innate, incredible power as women. But the first place that you have to start is to repattern that nervous system to know and deeply understand that it is safe to feel the anger. So there's a lot of practice that needs to be done. And this is what I love doing with my clients, is week after week, building that resiliency in the nervous system to be in a state of anger and be okay, right? So we're teaching our nervous system through repetition that it's safe to feel X emotion. In this case, we're talking about anger, right? And validating that. So practice feeling, right? I've got a lot of episodes on that. This is a big part of the work that I do with my clients in the Break Free from Sugar program, is we're going to really get into practicing learning how to feel again, right? So validating this anger is really important in that. Next time you're feeling anger, or you suspect you might be feeling anger, notice what it feels like in your body, first of all. This is a really good reference. You might not know you're feeling angry, but you notice that your shoulders are hunched up, or your brow is furrowed, or your hands are in fists, right? These are often really big signs, or your chest is tight. Just notice in your body. That can be a good resource for you in the future to know when you're actually feeling angry. And then validating it, right? Often that's all our anger even needs to be processed. Often, sometimes it just needs to be acknowledged. I am angry. And you might want to just validate that for yourself, or there may be someone that is safe to share that with around you. Like, I am feeling really angry right now. Being careful that you're not using language like, you made me angry, because nobody made you angry. You're angry because of your own internal world and stories and traumas. So I'm having an anger response. I'm noticing a lot of anger in my body. Like, these are the types of language that we want to use when we're taking back our power, our emotional power. So validating it, just knowing that I am really angry, and also beginning to bring in the mantra or affirmations for yourself in those moments to remind yourself that you have every right to be angry. Even if everyone around you is thinking, well, why? You shouldn't be angry. Why are you angry? Stop getting so worked up. Tuning that out and understanding that your body's response to any situation is valid. It's valid. It's your own experience. Someone else might not be experiencing it. That doesn't mean that you can't experience it. So you have every right to feel angry, especially in those cases where you know your boundaries are being overstepped, your power is being taken away, your voice is not being heard or respected, in all of these places, or the world around you, right, is doing things that you don't agree with, right? There's a lot of really valid places for your anger to be coming up. So that's step one, is validating this anger for yourself and beginning to feel it, beginning to allow yourself to feel it. Now, there are some of you listening to this who have no problem feeling anger, right? So there's two sides of the spectrum. And I've seen this with a lot of my clients. There's the one side where it's just total shutdown from anger, right? I don't even know how to feel it. It's like foreign to me, versus those who maybe resonate with being the hothead, right? The like easy to anger, quick to anger. Right? And again, these are all responses in our nervous system that at some point were coping mechanisms. So wherever you're at, it's okay to be angry. Okay. And practicing that if that's what you need, or starting to shift right into these somatic tools that I'm going to share with you right now. If you are in the hothead department, right, and you have no problem feeling your anger, is to start slowing down with it. Starting to actually allow it to land and allow it to step away from any interaction with another human being or an object that you might break, right? Stepping away to then shift into some of these processing tools. So when it comes to processing, let's dive into that, because this is the fun stuff. And there's no one way for everyone. So I want to remind all of you, you're unique. You're a unique, beautiful little butterfly, and your body is going to resonate with different tools for different emotions, for different times. Today may be one thing, next week may be another thing. But I want to share just a few ideas to get you started here. Now, when we talk about somatic tools, I'm talking about getting in the body, right? That's what somatic essentially means, very simply put. I have some episodes on that not long ago. Go tune into that to more of an understanding about the somatic work that I'm doing in my programs with my clients. But essentially, it's understanding that our emotions live in our body. They don't live in our head, right? Our head is where we make sense of an emotion or make meaning out of it. But our body is actually where that emotion comes from and where it lives. So if we want to be connecting with our emotions, connecting with our body, and processing emotions, we have to get into the body. The three biggest, most powerful ways to get into the body that I feel need to be all present when we are processing anger because it is such an intense emotion, is breath, sound, and movement. So these are three of the most powerful somatic tools. These are kind of like the baseline tools with somatics. Obviously, with each of those, there's various techniques, right? There's lots of different breath patterns and breath styles that we can tap into. There's lots of different ways that we can make sound, from toning to chanting to screaming, and there's obviously a lot of different ways that we can move, right? So because anger is big, as I just mentioned, right? Ideally, all three of these are present. And the intense energy, the vibration and energy of anger tends to react really well when we actually get into tiring our muscles. So when we think of, and I actually want you all to think of a child, right? A toddler, perhaps, maybe a 3 or 4-year-old child, maybe your 3 or 4-year-old child's self, who is feeling angry or feeling frustrated. That might be another word that kind of coincides with anger, is just feeling a lot of feels, right? That child is most likely going to throw a temper tantrum. And how do kids do that? How do kids look, and what do they do when they're throwing a temper tantrum? Because I want you to remember, before we were socially conditioned, before you learned that it wasn't okay to feel an emotion, before you made up all these stories and beliefs about what was safe and what was not in your body, your innate wisdom as a human being knew how to process emotions. It knows that when we're sad, we cry. When we're angry, we yell, right? It knows innately what to do. And it's through the shaping that happens from the moment we're born that we begin to learn other ways of surviving and behaving that helps us get the love and attachment that we need. So looking to children is a fantastic way to look at how we actually process emotions. So in this example with anger, right, with the temper tantrum, you're most likely going to see a lot of fists being thrown, a lot of physical movement with the arms and legs, maybe imagining a child on the floor, punching the ground, their legs flailing, they're screaming most likely, and their breath has picked up. They might even be hyperventilating, or they might be holding their breath, like there's a change in the breath pattern. So this is the same when it comes to processing our anger, right? We want to tap into those childlike experiences with really using the physicality of our body and our muscles. Okay, we really want to tire out those muscles. So when it comes to the movement portion, we want to do things like really intense dancing, right? That might be listening to rage music, and really moving your body very intensely, maybe even getting your sweat on. This could also be things like pushing, actually, is a really good one for anger release. So pushing against a wall, really intense so that your arms are exhausted. Maybe your arms are shaking, right? Things like boxing, right? Going and actually being able to hit something is really powerful. Punching your pillows, punching your bed, having an adult temper tantrum, like laying down on your face and actually pounding your hands and your legs into a bed, right? Or a couch where you're not going to hurt yourself. This again is meant to like exhaust the muscles. And that is a really, really important and powerful piece of releasing anger from deep in your body. It needs a lot of aggression. It needs a lot of movement. That's why, as adults, we tend to want to punch or break things, right? So we can find ways to do that where we're not actually hurting someone else or ourselves or breaking things, right? So using beds and pillows, and maybe even throwing rocks into the ocean in a safe way, or breaking things, again, in a safe way. A client of mine recently just told me about these rage rooms. Apparently it's like an escape room, but you go and you can break everything in the room. So you go and you can like throw computers against the wall and stuff like that. It's actually for that purpose. So that might be a really neat way to do that as well. And then when it comes to sound, we really want to get into our voice, because a lot of our anger is from our voice not being validated, or our boundaries. Like there's a lot that usually needs to be said when anger is present. So starting slow, I know a lot of my clients, a lot of women have a lot of blocks with using their voice, right? There's been a lifetime of not feeling validated there, and a lifetime of holding back our truth and our voice. There's a lot of work to be done here with our voice chakra. But getting started with even just like loud exhales, right? Maybe you're sighing. Maybe you can get yourself up into some yelling and some screaming. Screaming into a pillow is amazing release with anger. So getting in some of that screaming, maybe even getting into growling, some primitive growling, putting on some music, allowing your voice to also get tired, right? If you're really getting into some anger release, your voice is going to be raspy and exhausted after, because you are really just letting it all out. Obviously, combining that with some movement is incredible. And then with breath work, right? Breath, tapping into things like, I'm a huge fan of longer breath work journeys. So things like conscious connected breath work, neurodynamic breathwork, holotropic breathwork. There's a couple different techniques that help drop you into a theta brainwave state and actually allow your body and your nervous system to release whatever emotions need to be released. And sometimes anger can come out of that. I've had some really great anger releases in the middle of breathwork sessions where I'm growling and screaming into a pillow and shaking my body on the floor, pounding my fists, and like just letting it all out. So breathwork can be a great way to help you tap into that. And then other tools that I really love is obviously working with a somatic therapist, right? Or a somatic coach, joining the Break Free from Sugar program so we can do some of this work together. Rage writing is another one that I absolutely love. I learned this from a friend many moons ago. And this is really the act of getting very aggressive as you write in your journal, right? Really writing out all the things that you're angry about without actually thinking about them. So it's really important you actually just free flow, that your punctuation is horrible, your grammar is horrible, and your writing is messy. And you're really just getting into sort of this primal state of letting it all out on paper. And then taking that to the next level would be burning that paper or ripping it up into a million pieces while you're screaming, right? There's a lot of good ways that we can just really allow ourselves to go there, right? And in the beginning, it's going to feel weird. You're going to feel awkward. And over time, these tools and these practices for anger will become so much easier. They will become so much more effortless. They will become second nature to your body and your system. And it just know in the beginning, it's going to feel weird, right? So you might be holding back in the beginning. You might not be going all in when you're, for example, screaming or punching a pillow, but over time you might allow yourself to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is why, working with someone who can guide you in this space to help you really stay regulated while you're also maybe getting into spaces of dysregulation and then coming back into regulated state and safety again is really, really important. But you can absolutely start doing some of these on your own and using this as a practice to trust your body, trust the process, and explore, right? Exploring your edges when it comes to anger and what feels safe and what doesn't feel safe to you. Okay, so there you have it. There you have it. This is your Anger 101 crash course session. I've loved recording this episode for you, and I would love to hear from you as well. What are your favorite ways to process anger? And do you even feel anger, right? What are your blocks around anger? That's a really great question. And I hope that if you're driving right now, you don't do this, but please take some time once you are settled somewhere to journal on those questions, to journal for yourself on how you can start really honoring and tuning into your sacred anger, because it is vital in your journey to breaking free from sugar, to feeling empowered in your body, and to really finding your voice and your true self. She's in there. There is a feisty, angry woman in there that needs to be honored, deserves to be heard and seen, and is absolutely gorgeous in her anger. So I hope that you do that. And thank you so much for tuning into another episode. Quick reminder to definitely come and get your name on the wait list if you want to do more of this somatic work, if you really want to get in to the depths of the real root causes that are keeping you hooked on sugar every single year, get into some of these trauma patterns, get in so we can recreate a new blueprint in our nervous systems and really deeply heal this relationship with sugar and food by first healing your relationship with yourself, then definitely don't wait another minute. Come and get your name on the wait list for the upcoming Break Free from Sugar group program that's kicking off early 2024. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the extra early bird registration is officially open for those who get their name on the wait list. So the link is below the episode in the show notes. And I can't wait to see you all same time, same place next week. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. If you're loving what we talked about today, please remember to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone you love. And if you're ready to dive deeper into discovering your root causes and patterns that are keeping you hooked on sugar, be sure to check out our brand new free workshop series that will help you kick emotional eating for good. Find the link to download this free series and other amazing resources in the show notes below.